TG Geeks, episode 156, February 12th, 2018. Party spawns mercy rule. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery, sci-fi, comics, film, horror, genre. You name it, we talk about it. I am Keith Lane, and we are coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely, allergy-ridden Phoenix, Arizona.
And I'm Ben Raggington, also coming to you from I'm Still Coughing, lovely Phoenix, Arizona.
And we've got a fascinating interview for you today, so we're just going to get right to it. And this time on the show, we have award-winning author, Mr. Tom Leveen, local Phoenix author. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Yeah. So, for those people that don't know who Tom Leveen is...
How dare you?
How dare you? Yes, exactly.
He's an award-winning writer. How do you not know him?
Yeah. Tell us who Tom Leveen is and what you got going currently.
And why people should know you.
Exactly.
Well, there's so many great reasons and so many terrible reasons too, so I'll try to stick with the good ones.
Oh, but the terrible ones can be terribly amusing.
We just got started. Let's warm up. We'll warm up, and then we'll get to the terrible stuff. But It's out there. One of the things, a couple things actually. My 9th novel with a traditional publisher comes out on February 20th, and that's a novel called Mercy Rule, which we can talk about in just a second here. But also exciting for I think for your fans, hopefully, is I was just officially nominated for my first Bram Stoker Award with the Horror Writers Association for a novel I wrote called Hellworld, and I'm super, super excited about that.
Wow, that's incredible. Just to be nominated, that's an incredible honor.
It is. I know that's kind of the joke in Hollywood, like, oh, it's a privilege to be honored, but it really is.
Oh, rubbish. No, you want to win.
Huge.
Yeah. You want to win.
I do want to win.
It's all about winning. Losers are losers.
Winning, schminning.
Yeah.
But it is. It's a really cool thing to finally... I was on an initial ballot a couple years ago with my zombie novel, Sick, but I didn't make the final ballot, so I couldn't say that I was nominated. But this year I finally made it, and horror is kind of where I began writing when I was very, very little, probably a lot smaller than I should have been. But, so it's kind of nice to sort of come home in a sense to that, come full circle to that, and be able to just say, yeah, I'm a Stoker nominee. So I'm very, very excited about that.
You talked about how you some of your work is young adult. Is the horror work also of a young adult tone?
It is currently shelved in young adult. If you go to Barnes & Noble or any of your local indie stores, which you should, everything will be shelved under young adult because that's who the publishers have been. However, the last few years or so, as I've been able to move more into horror and thriller, depending on who I'm talking to, I will not mention the young adult aspect because I don't think most readers care, honestly. I think they want to know about the story and what it is that's going to grip them. Mm-hmm. And also, frankly, a lot, and it's still happening, a lot of adults are reading young adult.
Yeah.
I find young adult work to be very, very accessible and kind of universal. I mean,
I read Party, and I thought it was
Party was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean,
that was tons of fun to read. I mean, it's a very non-genre in terms of, it's not sci-fi, it's not horror or fantasy, but it was a very, very good read nonetheless. Yeah. And I kind of like young adult, to be honest.
It was a lot of good angst to get worked out there and identify with and say, yeah, been there.
Okay, yeah, when I was a teenager, I was a total dork. Yeah, I recognize this embarrassing situation. Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's that was my debut from 2010, and thank you. That was awesome of you to say. Mercy Rule, the next one that's coming out here in a couple of weeks, is sort of, it's not a sequel at all. It has nothing to do with Party, but it continues to develop the themes and ideas I think that were raised in Party, and it is also a multiple point of view like Party was, which was
cool.
fun to go back to
and
go a little bit further and deeper.
That was the way you wrote that was fascinating. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, please,
please do. It was like, what the heck? Oh, I see now.
Yeah, once you wrap your head around, it threw me for a loop too.
And then as you get further and further and further, it starts to kind of come together, and you say, "Oh my God!"
Yeah,
that was brilliant. It was just brilliant.
Thank you. That was exactly what I was going for, and I think Mercy Rule is kind of the novel that Party wanted to be, and I just wasn't quite ready or even skilled enough, I think, to get there. So after the other work I've managed to do over the last few years, it kind of got me ready for this one. And I think, and this is not something I say about myself very often, actually ever, but I think this is the best thing I've ever written. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Cool.
We'll see.
So
I'll have to pick that up.
Yeah, no kidding. So I have to ask this question. I mean, this is something that we ask of all writers, and usually we wait a little bit, but I'm going to jump right into this one now.
Do it. Do it.
Do the characters talk to you when you're writing?
Do the characters talk to me? I think we do have a conversation, actually. My background is actually theater. I did 22 years of theater here in the Phoenix area, and so dialogue is kind of my forte. That's the thing that I default to, as opposed to a lot of narrative or description, honestly. So I think as a result of that, a lot of the work that I end up doing with these characters, yes, comes down to us kind of either going back and forth, or at least me eavesdropping on what they're saying. That also happens a lot,
right?
Which frequently is me walking in circles around the house while the dog stares at me, and it's like, "What are you doing? Shut up! I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening go for a walk.
I'm listening into conversations."
Yeah, like you do.
But does that assist you? Because I would have to imagine that writing from multiple points of view presents a unique challenge. I mean, it's not like writing, because so many sci-fi writers or any kind of writer, many of them write from a third-person point of view. But all yours is first person, just different people. So
yes.
Each voice has got to be unique. What kind of challenges do you face in doing that? And is there an issue regarding consistency in tone?
I think it is challenging, absolutely. I do believe that that's where the theater aspect comes in, because there are plenty of plays out there, and I'm thinking of a couple that we did as high school competitions, where you're walking off stage, you do a 30-second costume change and come right back on as somebody completely different, and it's the same idea where you have to, how you present yourself, your mannerisms, the physicality, voice, all these things also have to change. You can't be the same guy you just were when you exited.
Right.
So I think that training, I know for a fact that training is enormously helpful in being able to differentiate those voices. I've also learned that there are tricks, for lack of a better term, or maybe techniques is a better word, to manipulate the voice on the page. For example, and it can be small or large, but like in Mercy Rule, I think I've got, I want to say 11 or 12 different characters running around.
Wow.
Who are all but one, I think, are first. Yeah, everyone's first person, but there's one adult who is like a third person, kind of observing things.
That's got to be weird.
Yeah.
It was, very awkward. But like, for example, there's a character who, I went through, and this was in revision, I went through and basically made sure he did not use any sentences that involved commas. So there's commas like when you end a piece of dialogue, comma, end quote. So not like that, but anything in his dialogue, he doesn't pause, he doesn't have any comma breaks. It's always going to be a short, abrupt, clipped sentence. Like one character would say, "I walked to school." Mm-hmm. This character would say, "Walked to school." Just these bump, bump, bump kind of things. And you can do that on purpose and intentionally in revision. So I did a lot of that.
Fixing it in post.
Yeah, it's totally fixing it in post. Absolutely.
Lots of editing.
Lots of editing. Word choice is big. Length of sentences, things like that you can do intentionally after the fact. Mm-hmm. But even still, you have to listen really closely to these characters as they get bigger and more expansive and start talking to you, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that's we always ask that question of authors. I mean, Jeannie is a big one. That Jeannie Cox.
What did she say?
Oh,
she talked about.
She's a nutcase. You know that.
Yeah, she's insane.
I know that. But...
She is. I think she's schizophrenic. But
yeah, but the only reason she doesn't go to therapy.
It
works for her. I mean,
work.
her books are her therapy. I mean, I made the last time we talked to her, I made the joke. You know, she would be a psychologist's dream. She says, "Oh no, I can't see those people because then I would lose my muse."
Yes. So the Alien series that she's doing, it's a first-person Kitty. Kitty is the first-person POV, and everything is from her point of view, lots of dialogue. But Kitty talks to her and says, you know, this is what's going on, but the other characters as well talk to her.
Yeah, but the funny thing about Kitty is that Kitty actually told Jeannie what Kitty's name was. Yes. She says, "Yes, my name is Catherine Kitty Cat or Catherine Cat." I forgot how she put it. Do you remember? It's like Catherine Kitty Cat. Yes, my parents named me that.
I can absolutely hear her voice.
Yeah,
and Jeannie, I mean, she's like getting ready to write page 1, and already the character of Kitty is talking to her.
I do think that happens a lot. I know, for some writers and authors, it's a plot thing or an idea that catches them first. I think for me, and I'd be curious if it's also a lot of other first-person writers, if it's the voice, because for me, I think the voice is the first thing that happens rather than story.
Yeah, I seem to remember one conversation we had with Jeannie where she said that she wouldn't trust any writer who didn't say that the characters at some point didn't talk to them. Because I think if you're going to be writing a book, I mean, even if you don't fully know what the outcome is going to be, if you're kind of writing it on the fly, like it's being revealed to you as you write it, I'd have to think that the characters at some point need to be fully realized in your head. Otherwise, they can't come off as legitimate or believable in your story.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. There are certainly things, once you've sold the book or you're working with an editor that kind of get changed and moved around. But for the most part, I would say, yeah, they are fully realized is a good way to put that. Absolutely. Yeah.
So could you tell us more about what Mercy Rule or...
Yeah, anything about... I mean, we don't want to go into spoiler territory, but what other things can you tell us that might tantalize our listeners?
Very well. This is a novel about being dismissed. There is a difference in my mind between rejection and dismissal.
Oh,
rejection, as an artist of any kind, I think, whether you're a writer, artist, photographer, whatever, actor, rejection goes hand in hand with the business. There's no getting around it. There shouldn't be any getting around it. And it is, regardless in how it's delivered, there's a face-to-face aspect to rejection. Somebody has to make contact with you. It's a relationship when there's rejection. Somebody has actively chosen to reject you or whatever, and that sucks and it hurts, blah blah, but it's part of the gig we signed up for. Dismissal, on the other hand, is not even an acknowledgement that you're there. It's dead silence, it's dead air, and that is so much more damaging, I think.
It's harsh.
It is. It's extremely harsh. Whether it's deliberate or not, if you're on the receiving end of dismissal, there's just a very big empty feeling that kind of comes with that. Mm-hmm. So initially the book was supposed to be more of a thriller, I think, the very, very first inklings of the book. It was going to be an act of violence, a very grandiose act of violence at this high school. And what the reader was supposed to be doing is kind of knowing this was coming, but not being able to figure out who it was. Because by the time we met everybody, everyone would have a reason to do it, or, quote unquote, a reason, or motivation, maybe is a better way to say it.
How Agatha Christie.
Yeah, right?
Now, you don't give us clues on the very last page.
Oh. No.
Not one of those kind of writers.
No. In the very last page.
Introduce characters we've never seen before.
I would not do that to you guys. But once, as we're talking about, the characters talking to you, talking to the author, once I started developing the idea a little bit more and started listening to the characters, it became less and less and less that thriller aspect and more a very sort of serious look at a very serious topic through these various points of view. And while there's still that lingering question of, anybody in the book could be responsible for what's coming, but that's not the thrust of the book anymore. I don't think it's more about the characters, and that all of them, much like Party, this is a theme I keep returning to. Everybody in the book has a reason to feel like they have been dismissed, whether it's by parents, friends, church, school, whatever. And that's something that's really happening and continues to happen to whether you're a teenager or an adult. And that's kind of the thing that I wanted to investigate. So it's definitely thematic in that sense.
It's something that you just kind of hit on. I'm trying to grasp onto this idea. Now, at what point between the germination of the idea in your brain, at what point, how far of a development in your head do you have to go before you're ready to coin a phrase, put pen to paper?
That's a great question. For me personally, I would say, it certainly varies from story to story, but off the top of my head, I would say about a week to 2 weeks. Sometimes it takes longer. I have a document on my computer that goes back, I don't know, probably 15 years now, that's just full of different ideas and little snatches of dialogue and descriptions and things like that may or may never get used. And in fact, Party was one of the places where I used it, because Party was an experiment. I didn't even expect it to get published necessarily. That one, there are at least 2 of the chapters in Party were supposed to be short stories, and in fact, one of them was going to be a horror short story.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up not developing it that way. But it was just kind of an experiment, like, can I take this and this, and gosh, where's a good place for these people to meet? Oh, a party, that'd be great. So on the one hand, some things can sit around for 10 or 15 years. By and large, though, I would say my stuff, I probably germinate for, I'd say 2 weeks is about right before I start writing something down. And then it takes, I don't know, not more than 25 to 50 pages before I can kind of get a sense of like, no, this is not going to work, or it's not happening, or I'm not feeling it, or whatever. Let's move on to something else. So
is that when you start to get a sense of the plot itself? Because as you talked about the characters, and you're one of those writers that's very character driven, but obviously the characters are meaningless if there isn't some kind of story to move them forward, some kind of plot action. So where does that come into the equation in terms of your work?
I think that's probably right around that, I'm going to guess 20, 25 pages. If by then I don't have at least an idea of what the plot might be, what that driving action is going to be, then I think I'm getting into pretty dangerous territory where it can just sit there on the page looking pretty and not doing anything, which has certainly happened to me before. And in fact, it's happened to some of the books that I've published. Like my second novel, Zero, was very much that. It looked pretty and the dialogue was fun and snappy and all that, but nothing happened. Like this girl just sat around feeling sorry for herself and went on a couple dates, and the end. That's a terrible book. That's a terrible, terrible book. So trying to look for and find that narrative engine kind of thing, that plot, that hook, that thing that's going to give the character something to strive for. These days, I think if it's not at least poking its head out by 20, 25 pages, then it's probably time to move on to something else or let it sit for a while.
And what about surprises? I mean something that happens that surprises you as the writer.
Ooh, I'm trying to think if I've been surprised recently or not. I used to be, I think, more surprised, because there really, in my opinion, there's a big difference between being an unpublished writer and being a published author. Right. And there's pros and cons to both, frankly. I think, before the agent gets involved, before you're being published by a Big Five or anything like that, there's sort of a freewheeling aspect to it that feels awesome because it's all discovery and it's all an adventure and it's all fun. Then you sell the first book and it's like, wow, I just won the Super Bowl. This is tremendous. And then you get that email of like, so when's book 2 coming? And if you don't have book 2, this could all be over. Like, you just got here and suddenly you're besieged by what's coming next because it's a business.
Right.
And that's something and it pisses me off because a lot, if not most, writers who are trying to publish aren't taught that part. They're not taught about the follow-up,
Right.
what happens afterward. So to go back to the question, I think the first few books I was surprised a lot because I was just, hey, let's see what happens with these characters, and kind of fun and whatever. But then by the time you get to book 4 and 5, it's like, you need to know what's going on and you need to crank this thing out because you've got deadlines and people are expecting something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So having said that, I would say haven't been surprised a lot the last couple years. However, with the advent of sort of the acceptance of the hybrid author of being able to self-publish and traditionally publish, and I've been kind of dipping my toe into that and doing some stuff independently because there's stuff that and a lot of my author friends are in the same boat where there's stuff we want to write, but we know we're not going to sell it. There's just no way, Random House is going to pick this up. So it's like, well, the hell with it. Let's just do it because I have X amount of fans who will read it and will enjoy it. And so I'm getting that back again. It's been kind of this very strange cyclical thing in my career so far, but it's fun. It's fun to be surprised. And it's starting to happen again now, particularly working on some short or like novella length horror stories that I'm developing like just within the past couple weeks, and I'm being surprised by that, and it's so much fun to feel that excitement again.
I have to say, it helps keep the writing fresh too.
So are you going to
It does.
independently publish those yourself or self-publish those things?
That is my plan.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
like you said,
I
they're not going to pick it up, so you got to do something with it.
Yeah, I think maybe, I don't know if it's a result of writing young adult or if I don't know where this happened, but I tend to write fairly short. I don't really get long-winded with my manuscripts. So I almost default to a novella length in a first draft anyway. And rather than, trying to puff out a script, because that's not something I'm particularly skilled at. I can cut things, but putting things in to make them longer is not a skill that I have.
Blah,
So
blah,
I
blah,
think,
blah, blah,
yeah,
blah, blah, blah,
it's
blah,
just these door stoppers. Like, I just don't think that way.
I
So,
mean, it's all purposeful. Everything. You
Right,
don't
yeah,
waste
yeah.
a word.
no, you don't. I don't. I try not to. So I have a fairly stable group of fans out there who and the good thing about social media now is you can kind of poll your fans and say, hey, would you guys be interested in this, and get a sense of the interest level, which has been really helpful. And so now I know I'm going to write this horror story that I just had in mind, and I'm going to spin it out into this lengthy possible series, and cool, let's just do that. And then meanwhile, that's like kind of the side gig. Meanwhile, I'm going to work on something a little bit longer, a little bit more substantive in terms of its length or whatever, and see about that in a traditional realm. And you never know, but it's never wasted. It's definitely never wasted.
So what book number is Mercy Rule?
Book number 9 traditionally.
Book number 9
Wow.
traditionally. Amazing.
Yeah.
Something that we haven't really talked about is how did you get into writing?
Well, that's a fun story.
We love fun
And I love-
stories.
I love telling it too. It's so much fun. So in second grade, we had an assignment. Oh yeah, and I'm not the only one. A lot of people started around the same time. It turns out, which is interesting. I don't know what happens at that age, but apparently
Dick
there's some
chases
kinda-
Jane,
Oh my
up the
word!
and they build a
No.
treehouse.
giant spiders. I'm pretty sure it was about giant
Oh
spiders.
dear God!
I don't know. I'm kind of stuck on the Dick and Jane. It's like that's got a really twisted ending, I'm sure. Anyway, please
It really
continue.
does. So we had an assignment to write this short story, and I think it was, in my memory anyway, it was that sort of brown recycled-looking paper with the blue lines,
Yep,
that you
yep.
use for handwriting,
Yep.
or at least we used to use for
Oh,
handwriting.
I haven't
Oh,
seen
yeah.
that in ages.
Yeah,
Yes.
the big chief pad.
Yes, exactly. So we had to write a one-page, just tell a story kind of thing. So I did it and turned it in, and everybody in like K through 8, let's say, at your school, there was the one teacher nobody wanted to get, and I got her in second grade. That was the teacher nobody wanted, because she was mean, and she never smiled, and it was just scared us all to death. So I turned in the assignment, and then she calls me up to her desk, which of course means I'm in trouble. And she says, I want you to rewrite this and make it longer. See, we're putting things in again. I want you to write this over again and make it longer, and tomorrow morning you're going to read it to the first graders.
Oh.
And I thought I was being punished for something, and she wouldn't tell me what it was. Like, I've clearly done something wrong. I don't know what it is, but this is terrible. So I did it because she was scary. And I went into, so the next day I brought it in, she read it and shipped me off to the first graders, and I was just terrified, of course, holding my story and just shaking like a leaf. And then I looked up and I saw, 20, 30 first graders just staring at me with their mouths open, just waiting to see what was going to happen next. And the instant I saw that, I was not scared anymore. I was not nervous. And I was like, oh yeah, I got this.
I got this.
And now I want to know, what was the story?
I'm pretty sure it was either one or two things. It was either about giant spiders climbing over Camelback Mountain.
Oh dear.
Nice! That's an image.
Right? And I might still rewrite that one. We'll see. Or it was something off of Indiana Jones. I don't remember which exactly.
Aha.
Something like that. And I knew at that, like, literally that day, I remember thinking, maybe not, consciously thinking, but I can date it back to that day. I want to be up in front of people, and I want to tell stories. And theater and book writing and story writing just came naturally right after that.
Wow, that's incredible. So,
Yeah.
and your really big claim to fame, other than your current writing.
Oh, yes, this is big.
So tell us what you had quite a run on something real popular.
I hope you're referring to Spawn.
Yes, we are.
Okay, that's good.
No, actually, it was that porn series.
Well,
Try to forget that one.
Oh, yeah.
And that is the one where Dick chased Jane up the tree.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that one.
I love the metaphors.
Yeah. I got to just odd sort of twists of fate. I was able to land a gig for about 5 issues, I think, writing and co-writing with Todd McFarlane on his Spawn comic books, which have been around, 20 years at least now, I think.
Wow.
How did you get picked for that?
It was just, okay, here's the thing, and I only say this because I want the aspiring writers out there to understand how this works. There is no, as far as I know anyway, there is no secret club of writers where we all like meet and hang out and give each other jobs.
Oh,
there
bloody hell. Well, okay, well, I'm throwing, I get that.
Right?
I'm throwing my towel in now.
If there is, I want to know where it happens because I have not been invited. So what I mean by that, just to clarify, like, if my dad is the president and owner of Random House, that doesn't mean my book gets published. That's just, in my experience anyway, that is just not how it works.
Right.
However, once you are in the industry, doors have a way of opening that you didn't even know existed, which is what happened with Spawn. Somebody who works with Todd McFarlane happened to be in a meeting with him, and he was talking about, I'm looking for such and such a thing in my writers. And this friend of mine was like, ooh, I know somebody. You want to give it a shot? And he was like, sure, send him over. So I just got kind of introduced to him that way as someone who had never written a comic book before, by the way. And so everything I know right now about comics, I learned from him, and it was a crash course in comic book writing.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it was, frankly, the best job I've ever had. No question. It was a blast, hard work. But I loved it, and I'm really hoping to do some more comic book work here in the future if I can.
How did that shape your writing today, if it did at all?
It did, actually, yeah, because it is such a very different format, and some people have compared it to screenwriting, but I don't think it is. It really is an art form unto itself in my very short experience with it. And I think the biggest thing was really learning how something has to change in every scene. There has to be kind of a turn in every single scene. You can't just have a scene where people are hanging out and chatting it up and not doing anything, where nothing happens. That's very not simple. It's a very easy trap to fall into with prose because we have, as many pages as we want to kind of spill or spin this story. And with comic books, you get, 20, 22, 24 pages or whatever. So this has to be tight, it has to be concise, it has to be visual. That was one of the issues I kept running into with Spawn is I would, because of my background, I was leaning on dialogue, and Todd would come out, I'd give him a script, and he would say, something like, no, that's not. Where's the action? This is a talking head. Don't show me talking heads. And I think phrases like that have come back into my prose writing now, where I keep thinking, do I have talking heads now? I sure do, because I'm relying on the dialogue, which, while good, I think, and fun and exciting, is still just a couple of people sitting there talking. So that sense of action, that sense of moving the story forward, comic book writing really, again, in my so far limited experience, you have to be good at that, and that requires a whole lot of revision and a whole lot more work in a different part of the brain than writing prose does.
Just condensing it down and getting all the action into a couple of phrases and that can go on a page.
Yeah, I remember there was one scene I was really pleased with because it had a villain. We were introducing a new villain, and I had him sitting at a desk that was completely empty with his hands on it, just kind of flat, and he was supposed to be all scary looking and whatever. And I handed the script to Todd, and he looks at it, and he just starts slowly shaking his head back and forth.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, like, what, that's cool though. Look, he's just sitting there motionless. He's like, there is nothing happening. There's nothing to look at. Like, oh, and like, that's a 3-second sentence, and yet that totally blew my mind. Like, oh, of course, there's nothing's got it. Okay, thank you, got it. So great to sit at the feet of somebody who has accomplished so much in that industry and just suck up as much as I could while I was there.
Yeah. So that just kind of, it helps you to in your writing period. I would think that if you need that character to be that short clipped, not talking head, but just action, you can do that, as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Great experience all the way around.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So, what is out there on the future for you? I mean, I've got to imagine that you have several projects that are, some that are just like, they're cooking right at the moment. Others that are maybe they're kind of like in the pipeline down a ways a little bit.
I want to get off the phone because I just brought up some great dialogue.
How did you know?
How did I shut these two geeks up?
Yeah.
God. No, I've got, let's see. I do not have, so Mercy Rule was my last, as of this recording, as of this call, is my last contracted book. I do not have anything under contract with any other publishers at the moment. That could change tomorrow. That's the thing about this business, is you just never know when the phone's going to ring. It usually doesn't, but every once in a while it does. So nothing else traditional at the moment on the horizon, but I'm still working on a few longer projects that are probably, I haven't decided yet. I've got a YA that I'm kind of working on, but I've also really, again, fallen back in love with doing horror, and I want to be able to take the safeties off, because there are still limitations in YA that you really can't do for as R-rated as some YA can be, and certainly mine veers that direction. There's still some things you can't really quite do that, Stephen King can get away with, and people like that, So I haven't decided which way to go with that when it comes time to try to do traditional again. In the meantime, I have what I think is going to be kind of an urban fantasy series that I will probably do myself. I've got some great artwork for it. I've got some fun ideas for that, and I think I've got an audience for it. Then this horror novella series that will be set in a high school but will not be young adult. It's more kind of like, how It is not young adult, right? Or The Body is not young adult. Same kind of idea there. And then, let's see. Yeah, I've got on my whiteboard at home in my office here, I've got at any given time between 20 and 30 titles or ideas.
Wow. You're going to be busy.
Yeah. Well, and some of them, some of them go back 10 years, some of them go back 10 days. It just depends. And we, the characters and I sit down and have a little chat at Starbucks, and we kind of see what feels like it has some legs under it and go from there. So those two, the urban fantasy and the horror, are kind of the two that have piqued my interest for the time being, and hopefully I'll get the first one of those out here. I would hope. Let's see. I just turned in the horror for developmental edit, so maybe a couple more months, maybe a month and a half, 2 months before that lands on like Amazon and all the other digital channels.
Okay, well, so you just now partially answered my next question. That is, if people want to know more about you and your work, well, first, is there any social media presence? And two, where are all the places that they can find all your books?
All of the books are available at any bookstore. So your Barnes & Noble, your any of the independent bookstores. And if they're not, then and this isn't just for me, but for any author that you're a big fan of, if you go to a bookstore and they don't have the book, then just throw a fit and be like, why isn't, you need to get this here, and then you order it. And that makes your author look great. So I always encourage people to do that. Start at independent bookstores, because I have just learned this, apparently, and I don't know if it's allegedly or apparently, but the bestseller lists tend to weigh more heavily or pay more attention to independent sales than they do other sales, because they have it in their heads that people who frequent independent bookstores actually read the books. Like there's this mystique about the independent buyer that they seem to weigh more heavily. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I've heard. So
I know that. It makes a lot of
start with a
sense.
bookstore. Yeah, right? So yeah, and of course, definitely on Amazon, and most everything should be available on the Barnes & Noble Nook, and I think probably most iBooks as well, things like that. As we move forward, I'll be doing primarily ebooks, and that will definitely be Amazon and the other ebook platforms, and then usually there will be a print copy that comes out a little bit later that is, for the time being, will be exclusively Amazon, but I'm looking to expand on that also.
Yeah. And what about?
And then also, just for reference to libraries, go to the library. Please,
thank you.
Go to libraries. I don't think, because piracy is such a thing, and it just drives all of us crazy, because it's already out there for free, and a lot of times you can even keep it. Like, libraries are getting to the point where you can get free music and get free stuff anytime you want it. So go get it there. We get the credit for that. Like, they buy it from our publisher, and that's still a sale to us. So by all means, go. If you can't afford books, go to your library, and if they don't have it, then throw a fit with the librarian, and that also makes us look good.
Yeah, and also you are a guest of honor at Phoenix Comic Fest, and you'll have your books, and they can get them signed and chat with you and everything else.
Absolutely.
So that's really kind of a thing.
I can't say enough good things about Phoenix. Been going there for 5 or 6 years now, and they just put on a hell of a great show. And I've never had a bad experience there, and that's like the big event that I look forward to every year. Can't wait to see him again.
So, what about social media? Do you have a presence like on Facebook, Twitter, or anything along those lines that people can follow you on?
Absolutely. My number one choice for folks is to go to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/author Tom Leveen, all one word. That's kind of my clearinghouse. That's where I put most of my stuff. Through that site, if you want to get a little bit more involved and get some sneak peeks at stuff, and I'm actually starting to post some free books on another Facebook group, but you have to ask to join. So that's something that you can find through author Tom Leveen.
Well,
and then I've got a website.
I was told to join.
Well, then you should. Yeah, it's better. So that's Facebook there, and then my website is just tomleveen.com, TOMLEVEEN.com, and I also am on Twitter and Instagram, but frankly, that's just kind of a fun little thing. I wouldn't bother. I would stick with with Facebook and the website.
Yeah. Well, this has been a really great chat.
This was great conversation.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
I agree.
With
Thank
us,
you,
Tom.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I had a really good time, and I'll see you guys at the fest if nowhere else, right?
We'll be there.
Awesome. Thank you.
This is Chuck Tomasi, author of Podcasting for Dummies and host of Technorama, the podcast for geeks. And you are listening to the Two Gay Geeks, because geek is better than cool.
And here are a few selected birthdays for February 12th through February 18th, 2018. February the 12th, Michael Ironside.
Oh, how nice. We just saw him in Total Recall.
Yeah, we just watched that again for the 9,000th time.
I've lost count.
At least. And also on February 12th, Joe Garagiola.
This is Mr. Baseball.
Mr. Baseball, yeah. He was a baseball player, and then he was a game show host, and then he came back to do some color commentary for the Diamondbacks here in Phoenix.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Filled with stories.
Just all kinds of stories. It was incredible. He was really a great guy. Also on February 12th, Franco Zeffirelli, famed for doing all kinds of
opera productions.
Wonderful opera
not just
productions.
opera, but even movies as well.
Lots of other
amazing
stuff.
production designer.
Yeah. And Steve Hackett.
Who we will be seeing in just a couple of weeks.
Yes.
I'm really excited.
Yeah. And Mr. Lorne Green, the original
Commander Adama.
Yes.
I was thinking Bonanza. I was going to say the original.
Bonanza, yes.
I was going to say the original Commander Bonanza.
Commander Bonanza,
Yeah.
yes. Or Captain Bonanza. Also, Abraham Lincoln in 1809 and Charles Darwin also in 1809. February 13th, Mr. Chuck Yeager, who if we didn't have Chuck Yeager, we probably wouldn't have
We wouldn't have space
the
travel.
SpaceX program.
Yeah, the SpaceX program, exactly.
That we have today. Because he was certainly a
He was a pioneer.
pioneer, yes, actually. Also on February 13th, Peter Gabriel. And
Well, I think it's an amazing artist.
absolutely, and Mr. Henry Rollins.
Another amazing artist, and what an intelligent man.
Yes. February 14th, Renee Fleming.
Another amazing artist.
Yes. Enrico Colantoni. And Simon Pegg and Florence Henderson.
Mrs. Brady.
Mrs. Brady, yes. We also have on February 14th, Vasilis Milicis. He was the composer for the music to Occupants.
That's right.
And a special shout out to my favorite sister Lynn and her husband John on their anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Happy
Happy
anniversary.
anniversary. Happy anniversary.
February 15th, Lillian Disney, or Lillian Bounds Disney, born in 1899. I didn't
Imagine
realize he fell for an older woman.
No kidding.
A couple of years. Yeah.
Did you want to share that story about when we were at the winery?
Oh yeah, we were at
Silverado.
who was owned by
Diane
Disney Miller and Ron Miller, her husband. And in one of the big barrel rooms, there was
It's a beautiful stained glass.
Stained glass that it was a lily, and we were standing there. I was admiring. I was taking some photos of it, and Walt's granddaughter came to me and says, "Do you know why there's a lily up there?" And I said, "Of course, for your grandmother."
Yeah.
So that was
How cool was it that you were talking to Walt's granddaughter?
It was incredible. It truly was.
Yeah, that was a good moment for you.
A great winery tour that we did. We got to go into
it was
the
fantastic.
crush room. They were doing a crush of some grapes. And
I
oh my
would love to
gosh.
go back there.
Yeah, it was just a great winery. And some great wines, too.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Also on February 15th, Galileo Galilei, 1564. And Susan B. Anthony.
The inventor of the silver dollar.
Yes, there you go. February 16th, Vera Ellen, famed dancer.
Oh, gosh.
Most famous to us for
White Christmas and for having a waist that's thinner than my thigh.
Exactly. Also on February 16th, LeVar Burton, Christopher Eccleston, Benicio del Toro.
Who we'll be seeing again on the big screen very, very soon in the next Avengers film.
And friend of ours in Toronto, Byron Martin. He's a producer of films for Patricia Chica. And a
longtime friend going back to Slice of Sci-Fi.
Back to the Slice days, Amanda Lang Messick. Happy birthday, Amanda. February 17th, Jerry O'Connell, Denise Richards, Michael Bay, who's being given another film.
Which one this time?
I don't remember. I saw it. I ran across it, and I thought I just scrolled past it real quickly because I didn't want to know.
I don't want to know what he's. I'd like to see him try his hand at Star Trek just for laughs.
Oh yeah. Also on February 17th, Alejandro Jodorowsky.
You have to see this man's movies to believe
my
them.
God.
They are insane.
They are crazy. And also check out the Jodorowsky's Dune.
That is an amazing documentary.
Produced by a friend of ours that was also the producer on
Beyond the Gate.
Beyond the Gates. And speaking of which, Jackson Stewart's birthday on February 17th.
Co-writer and director.
Yes. February 18th, John Hughes, the director of films, and Dottie Crone, a work friend of mine.
And fellow Disney aficionado.
Yes, and that's it for the birthdays this time.
Technorama, the podcast for geeks, because geeks are better than cool.
I've heard this voice recently.
You don't hear someone say, "Get away from me, you cool person." Who's gonna have their 65-inch home theater system installed by the Cool Squad?
Me!
Not me.
Oh.
That's for sure.
I failed that
How
one.
much cool cred do you have?
Not enough.
Not enough to care about. Think you'll find any canned unicorn meat at thinkcool.com?
Tastes just like
it's
chicken.
just a part domain name. They don't even have roadkill in a paper cup. That's why you need to start listening to Technorama, because that's what geeks do. Go to chuckchat.com and listen to Technorama before you turn cool.
Go give a listen to our friends Chuck and Craig over at Technorama Podcast.
You know, it's bad enough that whenever we're on the show, we hijack the podcast. Now we've hijacked the bumper.
Exactly. Routinely.
Yeah.
But we're actually going to be on probably this week's show, too.
Yeah.
So check it out. And it's going to be the last one for a while. So.
Yeah, and we apologize for any kind of insanity that we might bring with us.
Yeah. So now, what time is it?
Hammer time. Oh, sorry, not hammer time. Feedback time.
Feedback.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Have to remember that.
Feedback.
So, starting with episode 155, we got feedback, fabulous feedback from our favorite Arkle, and he just simply says, "Aaron Burr, sir?" Sorry, couldn't resist. Hashtag Hamilton.
Yeah.
And he then continues, and this is in regards to a conversation we had about apparently some not so savory DC fans who are trying to sabotage Black Panther. Anyway, he says, these DCEU fans, and that's DC Extended Universe, and I specify DCEU as I've yet to met anyone who likes both the movies and the CW shows. Well, I suppose so. In fact, all these release the Snyder Cut wackos don't even seem to acknowledge that Arrow, Flash, Supergirl et al. Even exist. And they're quite possibly...
Who are those?
And they're quite possibly the most toxic fandom I have encountered since the anti-Stargate universe nutcases
God.
seriously responded to their dissatisfaction with that show by sending threats to the actors' families.
Oh,
What?
for heaven's
Sending
sake.
threats to the actors' families?
That's...
Oh, let's get... So are we B&Ming about the TV series because it didn't quite line up with the movie?
Oh, whatever.
Big deal. Anyway, in addition to spreading wild conspiracy theories about Disney buying off movie critics, and even worse, one hopefully fringe theory is that Disney had Zack Snyder's daughter, the one who committed suicide, murdered in order to sabotage Justice League. You're joking me! Hashtag FFS.
Yes, exactly.
They're just not bright at all. They accuse Rotten Tomatoes of being anti-DC, despite the very high scores for Lego, Batman, and Wonder Woman. They accuse Marvel fans of never saying anything bad about Marvel properties, ignoring how poorly received Iron Fist and Inhumans were, and with good reason, as both shows sucked. Oh, and for good measure, they often pepper their attacks with homophobic dog whistles. Oh, that's just nice. So they have that going for them, too. You know, between self-described nerds doing terrible crap like this, while we have athletes risking their careers to protest police brutality, I think it's safe to say that Revenge of the Nerds is officially a horror movie now.
Exactly.
And thank you for that commentary, Arkle.
That is Arkle.
Yes. And then also from episode 155, where we got to interview the ever wonderful Jeannie Koch, we got comment from Dwayne Smokey, and some might remember him. We interviewed him a little while back for his work. And he says, now I understand why you guys recommend and interview sci-fi author Jeannie Koch so much. She's funny and insightful. I especially liked her discussion about her characters talking to her.
Yes, they do.
They do talk to her. They do.
You have to read her work. If you have not read any of Jeannie's work,
please
start by touched with
touched by an alien.
Touched with an alien. Yes,
touched with an alien.
Yeah. Start with touched by an alien.
Yeah, touched with an alien. That's a porn.
Yeah, there we go. The porn remake.
The porn remake of it.
Anyway,
you hear that, Jeannie? Giving you any ideas?
Yeah.
Just send your checks to us. Anyway, that's. Oh, and lastly, we have one thing regarding an article we ran. It was just the new Solo, a Star Wars story trailer dropped. We put that in our first look, and we got a comment from good friend Hamish Downey, and he simply has two words: very generic. And that's our feedback.
Yep, and that's the feedback for today. And if you didn't know, we ran an article on Saturday about Hamish's new film
That's
that he
right.
did, a feature film. He actually wrapped this film in 4 days.
4 days, that's
so
mad.
check out the press release that we did. It's written in a very different fashion. He kind of wrote it as a letter to friends explaining the film. So, because he considers us friends and we consider him a friend, and all of our listeners and people that go to our website as friends as well. So check that out.
So in other words, be our friend.
Be our friend. Yes. We want to hear from you.
Be our friend. Would you please just be our friend?
Oh, thank you. We want to hear from you, our listeners. We want you to be our friend. Yes. You are important to us. If you have something that you like or dislike about the show, you can comment on our episodes on our
YouTube channel.
Our YouTube channel, on Facebook, on tggeeks.com, on Twitter, Instagram, wherever.
I'm watching the wheels fly off right now. It's fantastic.
Yeah, wherever
it's great
you
comedy.
want. And we even have a listener line that you can call in and leave an actual comment, and we will play it on air.
You hear that, twins? We're still waiting.
We're still waiting. And any of that you do, we will put in our feedback section. Please play nice. And that's all I got to say, except that our feedback line is 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, you know. They're two gay guys and they're geeks. Is that okay?
I'm watching that hand on the slider of the mixing board.
You know, some of these sounds, if I ever hear them in someplace else, because I got these off of Pond 5 and purchased them, if I hear any of these sounds that I use, I'm going to immediately launch into whatever's, I'm going to think, oh my gosh, it's time for whatever.
Well, what I'm afraid is going to happen is we could be like anywhere. All of a sudden that music's coming, all of a sudden your hand's going to start moving like this, moving up and down like you're working a mixing board.
Yeah.
That'd be funny. Anyway, we just finished watching probably one of the most exciting television shows on Netflix.
Wow.
A lot of people have been talking about it, so it's time for us to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that is Altered Carbon.
Oh my gosh, we did it because we started like last Saturday.
About
last Friday or Saturday. I
last
don't remember
weekend.
what it was. And we finished it, Thursday? Wednesday?
Yeah.
Wednesday or Thursday?
There was one day where we didn't watch it at all.
Yeah, but we did
because
2 or
we took a
3
break.
episodes a night.
We were doing,
It was like,
at least 2 a night,
my
if not 3.
gosh.
And then I think we actually, we just binged the last night.
Wow.
Because it was just
absolutely
amazing.
I know that you weren't really into it at first.
Not in the
because
beginning.
It was too dark and...
Well, it wasn't not just that's just dark. I mean, yeah, it's very dark and it's horrifically violent. But the other problem is that the universe building in this one is really odd, which makes it a tiny bit dense and I like to use the word murky to get through, because with most television shows, they will, in the past, when we were growing up, they would just start you at the beginning and then build the universe as you go. And this one,
this one just plunks you down
right.
You're
You're in
universe.
it, and there is very, very little exposition to explain the universe. And then
I think part of that is purposeful. Because,
it is purposeful.
Because they build that universe in the flashbacks.
Yeah, I was going to say. We get a little bit of the flashback, a little bit here, a little bit there, but not enough for you to get all the answers. And then, at least in terms of what kind of universe am I looking at? And then it's not until you get about episode 6, episode 7, where then all of a sudden all the backstory pieces finally come together, and then everything that you've just previously watched, and that's the beautiful thing about being on Netflix, is that you can just mainline this entire thing. Had this been network television, I think it would have bombed. But by doing it on Netflix, and watching as much as possible, by the time you get to that big flashback reveal, everything that you just recently watched, it's still kind of fresh in your head, and all of a sudden all the pieces just fall together, and then you just can't wait to see where this is going to go.
Yeah, and I think you were getting hung up on some of the terminology.
The terminology was messing me up.
Yeah, and and it's easy to do. You think, what the heck does that mean? And then you finally figure it out. But
then it finally starts to make sense, and then because the terminology is just not used casually. I mean, it has meaning,
right? And
it's relevant to the story as you're watching it. So knowing the terms kind of helps, but it's not required for watching it. And the way this first season ended was just breathtaking.
Yeah, and it hopefully they'll pick up the other 2 books. This was based on the first book. It's a trilogy of books. So hopefully they'll pick up the next 2 books. I know that they've already started talking about season 2.
Right, there's already been talk.
But wow, it's incredible, absolutely incredible. Just
and,
well crafted.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
I don't know where they could possibly go. Part of it even though it all revolves around a character and what he's going through, at the same time, it almost feels a little bit like an anthology.
Yeah.
Because each season is sort of stands on its own a little bit. I mean, at least the way they're packaging it. So it seems.
And the way they did each episode was, there was a story, shall we say, to each episode.
Oh yeah. There is an arc, and yet they felt rather what's the word? Procedural.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. The whole series was definitely procedural.
Very procedural, and that's part of what made this thing just so. I mean, it's probably one of the best.
We happen to be those kind of geeks.
Yeah, but I think this is one of the best procedural serial writing with an arc that I've seen. I'm gonna go on a limb and say since Babylon 5.
Yeah, it was really good.
I mean, it's brilliantly well done. If you haven't checked it out, please do. I would have to say, stick it out.
Yeah, give it a couple of episodes.
More than a couple of episodes. Yeah. I would give it 5, at least.
Get halfway through it.
Because otherwise I know that some people only went as far as 1 and say, I give up. Don't. Stick it out. Try to get through episode 5, and I promise you that if you can make it that far, you will become a convert.
Yep. And that's it for our follow-up, or our second segment. So we got a few follow-up items. As always, check out our calendar on the website. If you have birthdays or events or a con or a film festival or whatnot, send us a note. We'll put it on the calendar. Phoenix Film Festival, April 5th through 15th, 2018 at Harkins Scottsdale 101. Over 250 films and 25,000 attendees over 11 days. That's amazing. And this year, we are sponsors of that. So check it out. They haven't released what the films are. We got a couple of films that we're kind of hoping
crossing
they
choose.
Our fingers
for.
We'll see. And check it out. Phoenix Film Festival. And Phoenix Comic Fest. Yes, that is the new name. Takes place at the Convention Center, May 24th through the 27th, 2018. Arizona Opera presents The Barber of Seville, Gioacchino Rossini's comic masterpiece, Figaro. Playing
it sounds just like that. And if you look at the score, I'm sure that at some point it says turkey garble.
There we go. Yeah, that's playing in Tucson, March 3rd and 4th, and in Phoenix, March 9th through the 11th. Tickets are still available at azopera.org, and this is a great first-time opera.
If you want to really try,
a lot of fun.
If you want to check out opera,
great music you've heard before, you know, from the overture to some of the stuff
famous
in it. Oh yeah.
I mean, if you've ever watched Bugs Bunny, you know the overture to Barber of Seville, and it's practically slapstick comedy at times.
It is. It's great. It's a great opera. And check out the 3rd edition of Podcasting for Dummies, written by T. Morris and Mr. Chuck Tomasi, who we just heard from a little bit ago. Go to podcastingfordummies.com. You can get your copy, and you can also check out their podcast they have there. We are huge supporters of independent creators such as Hamish Downey and Jeannie Koch. She's independent to a certain extent. She has self-published some of her works, and just all kinds of filmmakers, artists, comic book artists, writers. Check it out. If you know somebody that is an independent creator or self-publishes or sells their artwork or does anything that of an independent nature, you know, they're doing this for the love because they love their craft. Please consider supporting them. Support independent creators.
Special shout out to Doctor Who Talking Who on Twitter, as well as the Human Oracle on Twitter. They both publish a special, the paper.ly is what you would call them. Doctor Who Talking Who's is called Doctor Who Fancast Guide, and Arkle's is the Arkle Times Post-Dispatch News, and they both republish much of our content, and we give them thanks. To find them, to find Doctor Who Talking Who, just go to @TalkingWho, and to find the Human Arkle, just go to @Arkle. And in the same vein, the Human Arkle has a presence on Tumblr. It is called the Incorrect Star Trek Voyager Codes, and it's very incorrect because Brian likes to post nonsense there. Just a toy with my mind, and I'm going to share one with you. Harry Kim. That's the saltiest thing I ever tasted, and one time I ate a heaping bowl of salt. No, I know Brian made this up. Belana Torres. Neelix, is this salt water? Neelix. It's salt with water in it, if that's what you mean. Harry Kim. My vision's fading. I think I'm going to die. Neelix. There's nothing wrong with that food. The salt level is 10% less than a lethal dose. 7 of 9. Uh-oh. I shouldn't have had seconds.
Oh, dear Lord.
Thank you, Brian, for making that one up. And then also we have to give a special shout out to the Facebook group, The Gay Geek, for allowing us to post our episodes on their page. Their URL is facebook.com/group/The Gay Geek. And special thanks to Jeremiah Reeves for not having a bogus Tumblr page with bogus content. Thank you, Jeremiah.
Thank you, Jeremiah. We want to remind you to occasionally click on the Amazon ads that we have at the bottom of each article and the bottom of each episode, as well as the widgets on the side of things that we think that you should purchase, like some of Jeannie's books and
absolutely.
Hamish's manga and a number of other things.
Do we have a link for like Dwayne Smokey's
I
stuff
think
as
we
well?
do, yes. Yeah. The Taldra series. And check it out and consider clicking on those. It shows Amazon that we get some traffic, and we might get a little kickback. Mostly not on Kindle stuff, which is most of what we put up there. But oh well, it comes through us. They'll see it, and maybe someday we'll get that $2 that we made from them. And lastly, check us out on iHeartRadio and rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us on Blueberry, on Spreaker, and Stitcher, and a number of other places.
And other things that end in
yes. So check it out. We are there. Up next week? Well, I don't know.
Hard to say. I'm
to see.
pretty sure that we'll have something for you.
We'll have something for you. Absolutely. Okay, that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We're going to have several links on the page about things we've talked about. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I am Keith Lane, using my podcast voice. Thanks for listening. I bid you peace.
And this is Ben with his coughing voice. Cheers.